So we have an amazing keynote for you. He's so amazing that he did a panel for us. When was that, Rwenshaun? April, May. And we all said, oh, that's our keynote. He has an amazing story. He is an incredible speaker. You just want to relax and enjoy this. But let me tell you just a little bit about him. So Rwenshaun Miller really understands that there's more to a person than their mental health diagnosis. Do we agree? Yes. He knows that mental health affects all ages, all races, all genders, makes no difference. It does not discriminate, probably the only thing it doesn't. As a young Black educator living with bipolar disorder, he knows his struggle will always be more difficult than other folks. He's here to tell you that you don't have to struggle alone. Do not have to struggle alone. Of all his accolades and roles, Mr. Miller proudly serves first as a mental health change agent. His inspirational work has globally impacted countless lives, and it's getting ready to impact yours, and underserved populations through his compassion, his transparency, and his awareness. I can also say that Rwenshaun's coming to us from North Carolina, which for some of us, that's very special. But I'm going to turn this over to the man you came to hear, Rwenshaun Miller.
I wasn't about to dance, y'all. What's up with y'all? How y'all doing? Good. My name is Rwenshaun Miller. I come to you from Charlotte, North Carolina. Today, man, I want to take you all on a journey with me. The journey will start probably back in, we'll start in 2006, right? And then we'll ended up getting back to this particular point. But you can put up the slide. We're gonna talk about you can't heal what you don't reveal. This is a lyric from one of my favorite artists, Jay-Z. We're gonna talk about intergenerational trauma and mental health and breaking the actual cycle. Slinda, I'm having the same issue you having. All right, here we go. All right, so the disclaimer for this particular message, I want to let y'all know we're gonna be talking about some heavy stuff. If it's something that triggers you, it's okay to get up and walk out. I don't want you to sit there and, you know, torture yourself through this actual talk, because it's not meant to torture you. It's meant to educate and meant to actually activate you into actually doing something for yourself and for those around you. But honestly, I will not feel any type of way if you get up and walk out at any point, because I know how these things can impact people. Next thing, I love to start my talks, whether I'm talking to a friend, whether I'm talking to, you know, a crowd or anyone, because instead of me asking someone, how are you doing? Because we all know a lot of times when we ask somebody how you doing, we get the, okay, I'm okay, or I'm good. We don't give people the real answer, right? So I need, let's see, 3 volunteers. My question that I always start with is, tell me something good about your day, about your life, about something. I need something, we need some good energy in here. Somebody tell me something good, right here.
I'm with all of you all.
She says she's with all of us. Good thing. Right here. You won a cool, what's the award? Congratulations. What's your name? I'm sorry? Felicity?
Yeah.
Congratulations, Felicity. Dope. Okay, right here. Took your very first plane ride. That's so dope to come here. Where you come from? Huh? Kentucky. All right, cool, cool. So y'all bringing people out, getting on their first plane rides to come here and talk about mental health. Can y'all imagine that? I actually took my dad on his first plane ride about a month and a half ago. So my dad is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. And look, don't judge me. That's him. Please look. That's not me. That's him. But I took him to the Cowboys Stadium. It was his first time being on the plane, and my dad is a man of few words. But when we got on that plane and he looked out the window, he said, "Dang, the world is big, ain't it?" It is. It's very big. But thinking about that, so even talking about my dad, I want to talk about, I want to go back to 2006. 2006, I found myself I was at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Got a Tar Heel out here? Hey. I was at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I was going into my sophomore year of school. During that particular time, I had recently had an injury at football practice called a helmet to the knee. I'm going this way, individual going this way. Hit helmet right there. Had to have surgery. Honestly, this was probably the beginning of my downward spiral. Because after surgery, I sit in my room and I started to contemplate a lot of different things. Like, what am I gonna do now as far as sports? I don't feel like going to class because it's too much of a hassle. But then also, I really wasn't in the mind state to go anyway. Ended up during that time, started to withdraw from a lot of people in my life. I wouldn't even answer phone calls. My roommate would come in and ask me different questions, and I wouldn't even talk to him. At that time, I was struggling to understand what I was going through because I didn't necessarily have the words to express myself, right? I just knew I was hurt. I just knew I wasn't going to, go to class. And I just knew that the physical pain was something that was easy to deal with. During this time, I went through a period where I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. How many of y'all went 1 or 2 nights and not slept? Raise your hand. How did you feel? Awful, right? So imagine not sleeping for 2 weeks. Got to that particular point when I was starting to get delusional. Actually started to hear voices at that particular time as well. The voices terrified me even more because this was not something I was used to. Also during this time, I wouldn't eat. I lost about 25 pounds over a matter of 6 weeks. I didn't even care to shower. One of the major things for me at that moment that was a game changer for me was the fact that my mom, so let me back up a little bit. So I'm an only child. I have any only children in here. All right, normally I'm by myself, right? But okay, got some only children in here. So the other only children in here, y'all can relate and understand that, when you're an only child, your mom, she could be on your back. Because the first thing she gonna say, I know my baby. Mom calling me every day. As I'm talking to her, she was like, baby, what's wrong? Nothing, I'm good. She was like, no, you're not. What's wrong? I'm fine. Okay. You don't want to tell me what's wrong? I'm gonna send your cousin to come and check in on you. So now my cousin went to a neighboring college. She went to North Carolina Central. She's probably stayed about 10 minutes from my dorm. And this is a cousin that I really couldn't get much by, right? Because this is a cousin that was 5 months older than me. So we grew up as siblings. You know, we in the South, so y'all know how close cousins can be, right? So I was born and raised in the South. And when I was with my cousin, you know, my cousin came into my room, and when she came in, all she did, she just broke down and started crying. Because I wasn't the Shaun that she was used to seeing. My hair was all over the place. I smelled, I was skinny, and I just had this blank stare on my face. So she called my mom. My mom said, all right, get him out of there. So what we're gonna do is, she said, take him to your apartment, we'll be up there. Now, mind you, Chapel Hill is 2 hours away from my mom and dad's house. 2.5 hours later, they showed up. They wasted no time. But not only them, not my mom, my dad, I had 3 aunts that showed up, 2 uncles, and a family friend, and another cousin, right? I was like, dang, like, they swarmed in like the SWAT team. But when they came in, they kept saying, Shaun, what's wrong? What's wrong? Nothing. I'm good. We're sitting here looking at you. We can see that something is wrong. What is wrong? Nothing. All right, you don't want to talk to us? We're gonna take you somewhere to get the help then. See if they can get you to talk. I perked up then. Take me where? You don't want to talk? We're gonna go to the hospital. Probably one of the most terrifying things that I heard at that particular moment, because when you think about the hospital and psychiatric wards and all of those things, I think about the things that I see on TV, or how things are, you know, dramatized, and how we hear about just horror stories about how things used to be back in the day, right? And so with that, I was like, nah, I'm not going there. But again, I had a bum knee, and I lost all my weight, so I didn't have the strength, but I'm still fighting. I'm fighting the entire way to the hospital. Get to the hospital, I ended up punching a nurse. It wasn't intentional. I was talking, It wasn't intentional, but I still did it because I was scared. And that landed me in a straitjacket. Not only in a straitjacket, but also in a padded room. Now, I can tell you, this was one of my lowest points of my life. Because of the fact of, here I am in this room, looking through this small glass, looking at my family. They're crying, I'm crying, everybody crying, but I'm the one locked up. Also with that though, I was terrified because when I got in there, nurses don't look like me, doctors don't look like me, and none of the other patients in there look like me. But they want to ask me all of these questions about what's going on. I ain't telling y'all nothing. I don't care if y'all got me locked up. We're not gonna talk about this. So I'm gonna put a pin in the story right there. Let's go back to Shaun that was in grade school. Shaun that was in grade school grew up in Lewiston, Woodville, North Carolina. Very small town. When I say small, like a lot of times, even when I went to college in the same state, I had to reference my county instead of my town. We had one stoplight. Didn't have a grocery store or anything. Only thing we had was we had a Red Apple at the time. That was a convenience store, a gas station. My granddad till this day still has farmland there that he tends to on the regular. I used to help him out as a kid. But then also in this small town, I was a big fish in a little pond. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I was the man there. 3-sport athlete, all state in track, all region in football, played basketball as well, from middle school all the way up through high school. But in addition to that, graduated near the top of my class, earned an academic scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and then walked on to the football team and the track team there. So again, I had my stuff together. Grew up in a 2-parent household. Even though me and my dad, we didn't get along, but I mean, you know, that's what it was. Had resources that were available to me as far as family members. So we had a family conference, right? So my family played a large role in my life, and family wasn't just my blood ties. I grew up in an era, which I know is a little bit different now. If I get in trouble out in the streets, whoever seen me could beat me in the streets, then take me home and tell my mama what they did, and then my mama will beat me too. Not saying I'm for abuse of children, but you know, sometimes you need some act right. This is what it is. But I'm from that era. That's how tight my community was. But then on top of that, so you think about coming from that community and you the man, and then you go into a large institution. I had the pressure of, oh, I got to do this for my hood. They looking at it, oh, Sean about to go be a doctor, or Sean got to make it to the NFL or run in the Olympics, and he go come back and he go do everything for everyone that's here. I get to UNC, my very first year. To be honest with you, this was probably one of the initial starts of my spiral that I never really recognized. Coming from a predominantly Black community and going to this large, predominantly white institution where you have 30,000 undergrad students, and I only had 317 people in my class coming from high school, it was tough. Going into this particular point of Carolina, my very first class was a chemistry class. 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why I did that to myself, but you know like when you transition from high school to college, you be like, I got to get up and go to school at 7:30 in the morning anyway, so I can do the same thing in college. Nah, it don't work like that. My very first class, 350 students in that class. There were 2 Black people in it. So I'm a fish out of water at this particular point, because I'm in a space that's not very inviting. Even though I love the school, but you know, honestly, it wasn't what it needed to be at that particular moment for me. At the end of my first year, I ended up on academic probation because my grades weren't great. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to utilize the different resources that were available on campus and all of that stuff. After that, pride and ego was like, yo, you can do it on your own, even though you're still getting D's and F's on your tests and all of these things. So I'm still struggling. Then at the end of that semester, I'm about to lose my academic scholarship. So now I'm trying to figure out how am I gonna pay for school. And where I'm from, my mom and dad ain't had no money to pay for me to go to college. So I had to figure it out. But then also, I'm hiding from them my grades, because since they ain't paying for school, they can't look at my grades. I'm like, I'm gonna lie to you and tell you I'm good. So go back to this pen of me in the hospital. In my head, I'm thinking, how in the world did you get here? As someone who was the man coming out of high school, transitioning into college, and honestly, socially, I still was the man. I still had a lot of friends. I still was able to, you know, perform in various levels when it came down to sports until my injury. But now I'm in the psychiatric ward. And there was people that I don't trust. And then also I'm scared to tell people what's really going on with me. So as this slide, we put up the slide. We talk about stereotypes and stigma. These are things that really hindered me from, for one, speaking up at first about what was going on with me. But then for two, it kept me from actually sharing with the doctors and stuff what was really going on for me. So again, I'm gonna keep referencing this because of the fact that it plays a large role into where I view things at that particular moment. I grew up in the South. And I'm like literally when I mean in the South, I mean in the part of North Carolina where certain sides of the track you don't go on. Whereas also it's like I was brought up, whereas you don't trust certain people that don't look like you because they don't have the right intentions for you. But then also I've been educated by individuals. We think about stuff like the Tuskegee experiments, where Black men that look like me, they were utilized as test subjects. So if I'm in the hospital, why am I gonna tell you what's going on with me? I don't know what you're about to do with this information. But I'm gonna tell y'all, when you stay in that hospital long enough and you want to get out, you will break. Ended up talking and ended up sharing some of the stuff that I had going on and received the diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder with psychotic features. At the time, I was 19 years old. Also, at the time, I didn't care what the doctor said. All the thing I wanted to know was, can I get out? He said, yeah, you can get out, but you can't go back to school. Also, you need to go see a doctor, a psychiatrist, and you need to go start seeing a therapist. I ain't trying to hear all that. Can I go home? Yeah, you can go home. No school though. All right, no school. Where I'm supposed to go? Home. For those of y'all that are from very small areas, y'all can imagine why I didn't want to go back home at that moment, right? Yeah, everybody be in your business. Like everybody. Oh, Sean, why you back? It ain't been 4 years. You ain't graduated yet. It's only been 1.5. Why you here? Nah, I'm not going home. But of course, I told you I'm the only child. So my mom, she looking at me like, where you ain't going? Ma, I can't do it. But she also understood that our area that we came from. And luckily for me, this is one of my saving graces. I had an uncle that lives in Charlotte. So Charlotte is 4 hours away from my hometown. And so I was able to really get away. And this is my mom's baby brother. So she was like, all right, you can go stay with him. Cool. I go stay with him. And one of the things that he did for me was connecting me to a Black male psychologist. Y'all say, because y'all know the importance of that. Dr. Kendall Jasper, I met him the spring of 2007. When I walked into his office, I had to do a double take because I didn't believe he was a doctor. Because he had on a t-shirt, some basketball shorts, and some Jordans. And when he walked up to me, he dapped me up. He was like, yo, what up, Sean? I was like, who you? What are your credentials? because of the fact that we don't see these types of things. The doctors we're used to seeing, you know, they are not someone that looks like me, but then also if they are someone that looks like me, they button up. They got, you know, a white coat on and slacks and all of those things. That ain't me. Y'all see, I got kicks. That's my thing. But Kendall was able to reach me and create a space where I was able to break down my own barriers and share with him everything that I had going on. When I talked to him, I was able to, you know, really explore what bipolar disorder looked like for me, but then also the help that I needed to get. Then when he got me to a certain point, he was like, yo, Sean, like, I did all I can do. You need meds, bro. I was like, all right, give them to me, Kay. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, I'm not a psychiatrist. So then he had to explain to me what was in his scope of work and then why I needed to go to a psychiatrist. Kay, I only trust you though. He's like, nah, but you need meds. All right. If you say I need meds, I go to the doctor. He referred me to a doctor. Let me tell y'all. The doctor he referred me to was a 60-year-old white man. And I mean, he looked weird. I ain't even gonna lie. Like, and I'm looking at Kay looking at me. I'm like, bruh, no, this ain't about to work. I told you I only trust you. He's like, you know what? To make you feel better, because I know you need this, I'm gonna go with you to your psychiatry appointment. Because if there's something he says that you don't understand, I can translate it for you. I bet we can do that. Again. So I know that there are supposed to be boundaries and stuff, but Kendall became a extended member of my family. I needed that. My community. He helped me get to the point of this where I can able to take meds. Got meds, got good. You know, some of y'all maybe can relate to this. As I got better, started to feel like more like myself. You know, oh, somebody done said it. I stopped everything. Every single thing that made me be better. At that particular point, I also got back into school. And so I left Charlotte and went back to Chapel Hill. Because I was like, yo, I got to get back into school. I got to finish up. You know, we have this time frame in our head of things we have to do and accomplish by. Mind you, I had already been out for a semester, so I needed to get back on the grind. And grind for me looked like taking 18 hours a semester to catch up, and then also still taking until like 12 hours each summer session too. It's a lot, right? It is. It's a whole lot. And as somebody that stopped taking his meds and stopped going to therapy as well. And on top of that, I was working a full-time job. Right, it was a lot, y'all. So imagine when I got back into school, what started to happen? Spiral again. Now, one of the things I want to talk about when it comes down to us spiraling, not yet, not the reveal yet. When it comes down to us spiraling, let's think about what aided in this. Y'all see this? What is this? I'm laughing because I'm getting Patron right here. I heard Patron way out there too. Some people say alcohol. Some people might have said liquor. Right, I'm from the South, so we say liquor. But yes, Patron. And I use this in particular because 2007 to 2011, this was my drink of choice. This is a fifth. I would go through one of these every other day. And when I say go through, literally, I would drink this from the time I got up until the time I went to bed. And the only way I would sleep is I passed out from drinking alcohol. I'm not going to ask if anyone in here can relate, but I'm sure either we can personally or know someone in our life that are close to us that does the same thing. And it may not be alcohol, they may be using other substances. When I say substances, I mean other ways to self-medicate. It's not just weed, it's not just pills, it's not just, it could be sex, it could be food, it could be TV, it could be a lot of different things that we use to self-medicate. So for me, I'm sitting here going through these bottles, and while I'm going through these bottles, so I'll pour it in a water bottle. So when I'm going to class or when I'm going to work, I'm drinking all the time. I know people can smell it, but we get ignorant to those facts because we looking at stuff through our own lens. Do y'all think anybody checked me on this stuff? Anybody? Nah, why not? Says not their problem. I was functioning. I wasn't causing trouble. Let's think about our society, yo. We promote this stuff. We see beer commercials. We see, we used to have cigarette commercials on TV. Like, we as a society promote these things instead of actually promoting real help. We do it more now as far as promoting help, but back then, thinking about 2007, 2008, nah. But then also, let's talk about it like this. I'm in college. I'm in college. I'm working full time, so I also got a little money in my pocket. And whenever I drink, my friends drink. They're not touching my bottle, but I will buy them a bottle. Right? So my friends never checked me on this stuff. And like y'all said, I was functional. I told you I was taking 18 hours. These were the best grades I had in college. So it gave me a false sense of self because I was functional. I was able to hold down a full-time job. I was able to do everything, but inside I was in turmoil. During these actual lows that I had. So a lot of times people think with bipolar disorder, they think your mood shift is quick, right? We misuse words that are associated and affiliated with mental health diagnoses. Like you can hear they say the weather is bipolar, or this thing. I hate that stuff. But then also understanding that people with diagnoses, we fear being called crazy. So doing my low lows, so my high highs were my manic phases. These are when I feel like I'm Superman. I already got an inflated sense of ego, right? Because I felt like I'm the man coming out of high school and stuff. But this stuff, it goes way up here. Can't tell me nothing at all. I can stay in that phase probably about 2 weeks. And you understand how dangerous that could be. Because some people say, you hear people going through a manic phase, they do a lot of spending and all of that. That wasn't me. For me, it was more so of engaging in risky behaviors, whether it be, like, again, this plays a large role into how I was brought up, but then also how I was socialized. Hypersexuality, and getting with and everybody, for one, because I can, but also because I'm in this particular phase. or I'm drinking even more, I'm testing other drugs at this particular moment. Now, flip side of that, depression phase. Can't even get out of bed. Don't even want to talk to anybody. Withdraw from every single thing in my life. My longest phase of that probably been about 8-9 months. During this particular time, these cycles that I've had, the voices would get louder. And during this time, I would hear 3 distinct voices. These voices telling me that, you know, I'm not worthy of being here. They're telling me that I'm a screw up. I mess up every single thing. They're telling me that no one cares about me. All of these different things. So at that particular point, you know, you get tired of being here. During this time, over a span of, I would say 7 years, I attempted suicide 3 times. First 2 times I tried to overdose on pills. And you would think after having my stomach pumped and all of these things that I would, you know, go back, get the treatment and everything that I needed. But nah, I want it. My lowest moment of my life came from a time where my last suicide attempt was, I took a gun, put it to my head and pulled the trigger and it jammed on me. For me, it was the lowest point because I wanted some type of control, but I also wanted that pain to end. So imagine if what the voices are telling me at this point, it was like, damn, you can't even kill yourself right. After 3 attempts. So all I could do is sit there and cry. Because a lot of times we look at suicide as something that's like, you know, I've heard things about it's being selfish or it's the cowardly way out or, you know, people don't care about other folks when they do this. At that point, man, I was thinking about everybody else. I felt like for my mom and dad, if I was no longer here, they ain't had to worry about me no more. Personally, I could deal with physical pain, but that emotional pain was something that was tough. It was hard. I wanted it to end. So that changed my viewpoint as far as how I needed to take care of myself. For one, pull up the slide. Go back. Back. Now forward, back, please. So we're talking about the reveal. This picture here is of my late grandmother, Jessie Mayville. After that attempt, man, I had a talk with her. When I had this talk, I just went there and laid in her lap and just cried. And the part that really shook me up was I never told her anything that I had going on, but she ran down a list of everything that I was feeling. Whether it was the voices, whether it was the down moments that I had, I didn't want to talk to nobody. Also the high highs that I was experiencing, all of those things, she called it out. I looked at her. I was like, well, how you know this and ain't, I ain't tell nobody. I've been holding this secret for 7 years. Said because I experienced the same thing. I ain't never been to no doctor for it. But I know exactly what you're going through. My grandmother grew up in an era where it was you suck it up, grit it, and bear it. Right? I mean, a lot of us, we still hold those same values. It was an era of just pray about it and God will see you through it. So she suffered with that. I suffered with it for 7 years. She suffered with it her entire life. And at that particular time, she was probably, I would say, in her late 60s. So for me, I was like, all right, well, she done suffered, but I've experienced what life can be like. So I need to go back to therapy. I need to go back, get on my meds. When I got back on it, things looked completely different for me, right? But I also had to come to a realization of understanding that this is something I'm gonna deal with for the rest of my life. But then also dealing with that is also flipping my perspective of it and understanding that although I got to deal with it for the rest of my life, it's not a death sentence. So I was like, all right, I took it on myself. Shaun, you need to learn yourself. You need to learn every aspect of who you are, despite whatever people may think you should and shouldn't do, where people expect you to be, or anything of that nature. What stuff is inside of you? I had to learn about how journaling is a major key for me because my thoughts can race so fast. I need to get it out. Even if I don't have anybody that I feel like I can just talk to, me getting it out on paper changes the way I feel. I had to realize that working out for me is something that's a major part of just feeling better, even when I don't want to do it. What I eat plays a huge role in how I feel. I'm gonna tell y'all this, what you consume can eat you alive or it can make you thrive. And when I say consume, it's not just what you eat and what you drink. It's also the stuff that you watch on TV. It's also the music that you're listening to. It's also the energy that you receive from other folks. So for me, I had to start keeping track of all of these particular things so I could learn how I can be my optimal self. So my friend Turner here is today, right? And so if I'm happy-go-lucky before, then I talk to Turner, my energy get real low, or I get mad, I jot it down. If I talk to Turner 5 out of 7 days a week, and 4 out of those 5 days I'm pissed off after I talk to him, I don't feel, I gotta start scaling that back. I gotta start putting up a boundary with that. Gotta pay attention to these particular things. And I'm gonna say, I know we had a family conference, but then especially with your family. Because sometimes they could be the worst abusers of you. But it also takes you to also learn that aspect of yourself and then implementing those boundaries in certain places. Also with that, learning that coloring is a huge part of my self-care routine now. I heard people clapping. It's an active form of meditation for me. because I'm able to get lost in it. Time could just fly by and I'm not worried about anything. How many of y'all have an activity that y'all can really do and you can get lost in it? Good. How many of y'all actually do it though? I like that. I like that. I've asked that question to people, man, and like they know what they're supposed to do, but they don't do it. We know some people, they may enjoy fishing or they may enjoy doing other stuff like knitting or whatever, painting, but they don't do it because they get so caught up in. Another thing, I'll say we live in a capitalistic society. So when you live in a capitalistic society, you feel like you always got to be doing. You feel like you always got to be making money. You feel like you always got to be doing these things to put a roof over your head. You know, we got inflation going on and all this other stuff. So it puts us in a bind. But still, I challenge you to take care of yourself. Find those moments where you can take care of yourself. For me, those moments, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I knew I was a kid. But I'm gonna tell you, the reason why I get up at that early is because the world is quiet. I don't have to worry about my phone going off. I don't have to worry about, even if I want to go outside, it's a bunch of cars or anything like that. I can focus on me and my higher being at that particular moment. I pour into myself before I pour into anyone else. But the thing for that, I know a lot of times we may say that, oh, I can't get up that early, or I got to get my spouse ready, or I got to get my children ready and all that. All you need is 5 minutes. Cut that show off the night before, take your butt to bed earlier, and get up 5 minutes earlier and give that time to yourself. Whether it's you sipping tea, whether it's you meditating, whether it's you dancing around butt naked if you want to. Do what you want to do and not worry about anybody else. How many of y'all, the first thing y'all do when y'all wake up, y'all pick up your phone? A lot of us. Some of y'all lying because y'all ain't raised your hand, but. Don't make that phone a priority then before you make yourself a priority. Because one of the things I realized is as soon as I pick up my phone, I start to give to anybody else that's on the other end of that. Hey, look, oh, she said she picking it up to shut the alarm off. You know they still make alarm clocks, right? I laugh because like that was my excuse before too. Amazon has alarm clocks and they're fairly cheap. And you set your alarm away from your bed, so you got to get up and get out the bed. Don't get back in it though. But these are the things that we have to start implementing. It's the small things that's going to make those significant changes to not only your mental health, but then everybody else's mental health around you. Next slide. I'm gonna go to the next slide real quick. Intergenerational trauma. It's easy for me to talk about slavery, easy for me to talk about, police brutality or, things that other cultures and all of those things went through with intergenerational trauma, and we pass that stuff down. I want to flip that just a little bit. Let's not even just talk about that. Let's talk about the behaviors that come from that. This was one of them. I watched my dad drink beer every single day. I watched my granddad drink liquor every single day. My granddad used to even make moonshine. Yeah, he had a liquor still and all. His daddy used to drink. My grandma smoked cigarettes. My mama smoked cigarettes. My great-great-grandfather was an alcoholic. Y'all see the trend here? All of them before me never really talked about mental health or talked about what they were really going through, right? It was grit it, bear it, move on. Now, I'm gonna narrow this scope just a little bit. Someone asked me before, it was like, yo, you don't talk about your dad a lot. Now, granted, I told y'all we didn't get along when I was younger, but now like we have a great relationship. The relationship, though, when I was younger was based off of the fact of he showed me love only to his own capacity. I'm gonna repeat that. He showed me love only to his own capacity. Meaning, he showed me love by, oh, I'm going to work every day to put a roof over your head. You got food in your belly. That's how you know I love you. It's not by giving you a hug. It's not by giving you kisses or praise or even telling you I love you. I do it by showing. But then also for the men in here, how many of y'all feel like that's something you're supposed to do anyway? You're supposed to protect and provide. But then I also had to look at how he was raised, right? He was raised by his grandfather because his mom and dad had to leave the country to go, I say the country, I'm sorry, had to leave, I call it country because it ain't nothing there. They had to leave rural North Carolina and go to New York to work and send money back home. So he was raised by 2 generations before him. And we know old school black daddies, bruh, they're walls. So he couldn't give me no hug and kisses and tell me he loved me because he ain't never got it. That's the intergenerational trauma that I want to focus on. That lack of care or that lack of empathy that we pass down to our next generations. Because of the fact of when I was a kid, I got beaten, so you go get beatings too. I ain't gonna lie, some of these kids need beatings, but they ain't gotta be with no extension cord. Or if I get on punishment, you tell me I'm on punishment and not explain why I'm on punishment. It's not just because you said so. I ain't gonna lie, y'all, I have a hard time with that. So I got a 4-year-old son, smart as ever. Be like, why, daddy? It's the hardest thing for me to do to not say because I said so. Because again, that's another form of trauma where we shut our kids down from asking questions because we don't have the capacity to be able to either talk about it at that particular moment, or we can't even come up with the words to say what we need to say at that particular moment. Let's change that, y'all. Now, even when my son cries, I grew up from the aspect of boys don't cry. That's one of the things that contributed to when I was going through my period, me actually communicating what was going on with me because of the fact that boys don't cry. We hold all these emotions and stuff in. Only thing we was able to show is anger and happiness. So if I'm not feeling any of those, I can't emote. But then also with that, you're not telling me or allowing me to have other emotions because you're not telling me what those emotions are. But then also you're not giving me the space to do those things. So now, when my son cries at 4, my first question to him is, are you hurt? Are you physically hurt? He'll just say, "Ooh." He just keep going. Elias, look at me. Look at me. Are you hurt? Are you physically hurt? No. Okay. Why are your emotions, are your feelings hurt? Yes. Why your feelings hurt? Because you wouldn't let me have a toy. I tell you, I be wanting to laugh in front of him, but then you gotta have serious face, right? I said, okay. I said, so in that moment, instead of you crying to try to get what you want, can you and daddy just have a conversation about why daddy won't let you get the toy? Or if we can, do something else instead of having the toy? Okay. It's that patience that you gotta have. But not only the patience with the child, it's the patience with yourself. Because again, a lot of y'all are in here for a reason, right? A lot of y'all in here are trying to break that intergenerational trauma that y'all experienced, and you don't know how to do it. So you got to give yourself patience when it comes down to figuring this thing out. Because again, we will revert right back to what we were taught, and then also what's easiest for us at that particular moment. So understanding that part of the intergenerational trauma. Put up the next slide, y'all. So as y'all can see, I'm a Jay-Z fan again, and I go to this particular comment. Nobody wins when the family feuds. We're all screwed because we never had the tools. We're getting the tools now, but it's a steep learning curve, y'all. Again, family played a large role into why I'm here today, while I'm still here. But then also when it comes down to it, all of y'all family now. We community. That's where I come from. I come from, again, when I'm out if y'all see my son and he out there doing something, I'm gonna get y'all for not checking him. Then I'm gonna get him. Because it takes a village. Not just to raise a child, but also to raise adults, because I'm parenting my parents right now, and boy, that thing is tough. You talking about intergenerational trauma, good Lord. But I hope that you all take this conference as an opportunity for y'all to get the tools to be able to address the things. This is priority for y'all. Address things within yourself, then address things with your loved ones, then your community. I say start with yourself first because I get tired of seeing these broke people out here trying to heal other folks and they ain't addressing their own issues. And I say that as a therapist, y'all. So, I guess I ain't never finished my story, huh? Sorry, y'all. So this led to, everything after I ended up actually getting better and understanding myself, I decided I wanted to become a therapist. I went and got my master's. pursuing my PhD now in international psychology. Y'all are clapping, but I need some help with this dissertation, boy. Good gracious. But also, I started a nonprofit, Eustress Inc., which does a lot of mental health awareness in the community where it's not even about just raising awareness, it's also about creating this action. I put this down because it's about creating the action. So action meaning understanding that mental health and mental wellness looks different for everyone. My process, not only did I need medication, I needed therapy, but then also I needed Reiki. I needed to understand my chakras. I needed to understand the healing. I needed to understand different aspects of drum circles that, these different vibrations and all of these stuff. It's a collaborative effort from all of us and all things that we have available to us. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna give you this pill and things will be okay. Because I still got to put the work in. I still have to go to therapy to hug Sean when he was 4 and 5 years old that was molested by his older cousin. I still need to go and deal with Sean when he was 16 years old and he was stopped by the police and the police kept harassing him. I still got to deal with those things. So that's what but I can still help folks, but also I'm still putting in my own work. So that's why I say yourself is your first priority today. Even through this conference. Because not only as you start to work on your own self, you start to teach others around you the things that they may need to do for themselves. And you lead by example. I'm teaching this another story. People say I don't talk about my pops, but I talk about them a lot actually. But I'm gonna tell y'all, probably about a year ago, I threw my son a birthday party and we were leaving the house and my dad walked up to the truck and told my son, I love you. That thing hit me in 2 different ways, I'm gonna tell y'all. Cause first I was like, oh. Second, I looked at him, I was like, what about me? You ain't never told me you love me. But if he go show it to him, that's fine. But he learned that from me, being able to tell him. So being a true example and being able to do your own work is going to take you a long way, not only for yourself, but then your families. And, I know we have caregivers here. We have individuals that are dealing with their own stuff. We have educators here. We have clinicians here. We have family members that are just trying to figure this thing out. And I know from a macro level, we don't have enough resources to be able to take on everything, but do what you can internally. You got other folks, like this organization here is working on the macro stuff. So you work on the micro stuff that is right there in front of your face. And then also, I couldn't wait on someone to fix it for me. I had to own that. I had to own living with bipolar disorder. I had to own that I'm still Rwenshaun Lamar Miller. I had to own that I used to be an athlete, but then I came to become a therapist. I own all parts of me. When you're able to do that, you're unstoppable, yo. So with Eustress, I teach these particular things. We host adult coloring nights. Like I bring a DJ in and everything, and like we have fun. I do a mental health awareness gala as well, where I give scholarships to Black men that are pursuing their degrees in mental health in some way. So thank you. Also, when the pandemic started, we started a fund where we started to do therapy sessions for individuals that couldn't afford therapy. So over the last 3 years, we've done over 8,000 free therapy sessions for folks. Another thing that I'm proud of is, so I started back in 2019, I started a Young Black Male Youth Initiative. So with this initiative, I was able to go into a Title I middle school. I worked with 7 seventh grade boys. I did therapy with the boys. I did therapy with everyone that was in their household, and I did therapy with their teachers as well, all for free. But the goal of it was, I can't just focus on these young men. I also got to focus on their supports and help them heal. That's how we move the needle when it comes down to the ecosystem and how we address mental health, because we all got something that we're dealing with. There's a very thin line between wellness and illness. So being able to, so as I helped that group of boys, that was my first cohort. Those boys now, they're in, some are in 10th, some of them in 11th grade now, and I still see them. But I also taught them how to be my lay counselors. So like while they're in school, you know, they picking up on signs and symptoms with their peers. And when they're picking up signs and symptoms with their peers, they're like, oh, you need to go talk to Mr. Rwenshaun. Or Mr. Rwenshaun, you need to pay attention to this one because something ain't right. That's community. That's empowering people to own, you know, their own stuff. But then also, as they get help, they want to influence their peers, because I'm not a vessel for everyone. I understand that. That's fine. I remove my ego from that. If I touch one person, I'm good. But I know that one person is going to be a ripple effect. That's the same thing I challenge y'all to do. You ain't got to take on the whole world, but do what you can. And again, that starts internally. Also with that, I started the Good Stress Company, which is my private group practice. I have 8 therapists that currently work for me. Opening up another location in my small hometown as well. But one of the major things that I would say is I was influenced by Dr. Kendall Jasper back in 2007. And I can honestly say right now I'm standing on his shoulders, because when my therapy practices, I got a video game system in my office. I'm taking my clients, we're going to shoot ball, we're going to work out, we're going to the park and all of these other things. I cannot expect them to come in my office and sit there and be like, oh, so tell me about your day. It ain't gonna work. I sit on my couch more than they do. A lot of times it's because I'm asleep. But we have to change the way we deliver our services. Even as a clinician, I'm like, nah, I'm invested in my clients. I'm gonna go, Kendall went above and beyond for me, I'm gonna go above and beyond for my clients. Yeah, the licensure board say you're supposed to have this code of ethics and this, that, and the third, but look, I come from collectivism and where we work as a community. So like I'm a part of my community. And so if my clients need me to do something, whether it's me going to sit at their house and do a therapy session while I'm holding the baby and this, that, and the third, that's what I got to do. Because I know where I've been. I live by the motto, be who you needed when you were younger. I needed somebody to come tell me it's okay to cry as a man. It's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to take your meds. It's okay to do these particular things. So that's why I live by that motto, and that's why I try to exude that every single day. And y'all know y'all probably got certain things that y'all want to they're gonna address in the community because you felt those issues when you were younger. Do it. Next slide. So these are some of the resources that we have available that I wanted to make sure I highlight today for us. Eustress Inc. That's my organization. I love the fact that they have the suicide and crisis lifeline now, where it's just a text now. Because at first that long number, I never even remember that number. So now it's just 988. The National Federation of Families. So I appreciate this organization, man. They're doing some dope stuff, and I love it. I love it. There's definitely clapping up for them. Also, the National Family Support Technical Assistance Center. Make sure y'all check those out too as well. So please, please, please utilize these particular resources. Next slide. Can we get the next slide? Is question and answer, y'all. I want to just, I know y'all, I've been talking to y'all for what, an hour and 15 minutes. I want to open it up for y'all. I like to hear from y'all.
You got 15.
What do y'all want to know? Any questions or anything? We got the mics.
We have 15 minutes.
I'm gonna tell y'all that was weird for me, but I wanted to make sure that I received that. I really appreciate that, because a lot of times we don't take celebration and well. So I thank you for that.
We have a question right here.
I have a question for you, Sean.
Where
You had in very, very back. When you said that you were hallucinating after not sleeping for like 2 weeks, were you aware when you were hallucinating that you were hallucinating?
That's a good question. No, I wasn't. At that particular moment, I wasn't aware that I was hallucinating. I just knew something was not quite right. I knew that I was hearing voices, but it didn't correlate with me that it was hallucinations. And then also, like I said, at that time, I'm 19 years old, and mental health was not something that I was educated on. And so only thing I was thinking is, oh, I'm going crazy. That's the first thing I'm thinking in my head. So I was like, I can't tell anybody that I'm going crazy. Because think about if, now things are a little bit different now, but think about if I would have went up to my friend and be like, yo, I'm hearing these voices, yo. Think about what his response would have been. Right. He would have said, you crazy? And then went and told everybody. So yeah, so like I didn't know what it was at that particular moment, but like it definitely played a role into why played a role into why I didn't talk about it enough.
Okay, I have one here.
I'm a father, and I have young adult children with mental health needs. And then professionally, I support families and help them guide when their young adult children and even teens have mental health needs. How do I strike a balance? How do they strike a balance between being there and supporting, but also needing to call out, you can't self-medicate. You can't get off on these tracks because it's going to make it worse. How do we find that balance?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's also a very loaded question. I would say one of the things is when it comes down to understanding, especially with working with our kids, a lot of times we try to give them more than what we had, but then also understanding that sometimes that enables them as well. So understanding that certain boundaries need to be put in place prior to, well, outside of just the mental health disorder, right? So like even just them understanding that you can't get everything that you want all of the time. So some of that stuff may play into like or there is no easy fix for certain things. So, I mean, when it comes down to dealing with that particular balance, for one is showing them how they are when they're on their medication and when they're doing things well, how life can be compared to some of the things that you notice that they're doing when they're off of it that they may not notice, and bringing attention to those particular things. So like for me, if my mom and my family members now know that if I'm acting erratic or some of those, they don't mind recording me and then showing me later, be like, look, this is what you were acting like. To show you, because a lot of times you may be in another state of mind and you may not remember certain stuff. So, but then also for yourself, understanding what your balance is when it comes down to how much you want to give them. Because like, I mean, again, you want to give your children every single thing, but you also got to get to the point of understanding where do you cut off the rope? Because they'll bleed you dry. And especially if they know that dad is going to come save them every single time. Sometimes they have to hit rock bottom. As long as rock bottom is not death or, hurting somebody else, sometimes they got to do that. And because then they'll be able to figure it out, because you can't make somebody want to be healthy. All you can do is put the resources in front of them.
My name is Cameron Galloway. I'm with Kentucky Partnerships and Children and Families, and also I'm with the Louisville Metro Government. I'm from Kentucky. But mine is less of a question, more so of asking you, can we connect after this as a Black male achieving, trying to go on to get his master's currently, and then going on to get a PhD as well? I would love to connect with another Black male who's going on to impact youth, because that is the same vision I have.
Definitely. I think, and then, definitely. And then, so there's a slide, the next slide up there. I mean, we can go ahead and put that up so people can have that. But no, continue to answer the questions. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Shakira. I'm from Community Counseling and Mediation. I'm a YPA. I'm over here in the back, to the back. My question for you would be, if you could give advice to your younger self, what advice would you give? I'm sorry, repeat it, because I was still trying to find it. Okay, so my question for you is, if you could give advice to your younger self, after dealing with everything that you dealt with, especially like with mental health, what advice would you give your younger self?
Embrace all of your labels early. So with that, so when I was in high school, I was an athlete, but then also I was a nerd as well. But then also understanding that I had a reading disability, but I didn't get diagnosed with the reading disability to my junior year in college, because I was able to pass through other stuff and not really address those issues. So I needed that label to help me get to another label, or get to make stuff a little bit easier. So don't be afraid of those labels.
Good afternoon. First, I want to say thank you for your service. I have a quick question. Knowing that it was hard to talk about mental health when you was younger, what tools do you use now to talk to the young people, to get them to talk about mental health, saying that's a stigma amongst our community?
Good question. So for me, I use a lot of, like I said, video games. Music is something that we can tie a lot of feelings and emotions to, because a lot of times, I ask my clients, pick out a song that most relates to the way you feel today. And let's talk about that. Why does it relate to you? What is it, something that you're feeling? So I know y'all may, so the feelings wheel, I use that a lot too, to be able to teach them what each feeling on the wheel looks like, and then provide them with certain examples. I understand, so vulnerability leads into action with a lot of the young kids. So if you're willing to be open to them about some of the stuff that you've been through, they're willing to be open with you because of the fact that they feel like you've been through some of the same things. But then also just listening to them, man. Like, and then paying attention to some of those things. So the kids these days, they talk about mental health way more than that we did. But then also, I'd say they talk about it, but let's educate them on what it actually is. You know, what certain because I hear people be like, oh, I'm depressed, only when they're sad. You know, depression is something that impacts you from the aspect of something longer than 2 weeks. So we need to educate them on what that actually is, and so they can also understand the language that they're using to describe how they're feeling may not be as accurate as it possibly can be at that moment. And so, I mean, also, you just got to be creative, man. Sometimes you got to tap back into your own childhood and understand some of the stuff that made you want to talk to other folks.
To your right, in the front. Okay.
You were sitting down.
Your journal that you have on your website, is it guided, and do you have any today?
Yes, it is guided. So the journal that I created on my website is called the Why You Stressing Journal. And I actually built it from my own journal that I used to do when I was in therapy sessions. So it actually, you know, it challenges you to write down every single thing, like I was mentioning earlier, when it comes down to your food, your water intake, who you talked to, how you felt before you talked to, how you felt after you talked to them. You know, because a lot of times people be like, oh, I don't know what to write. All right, so here's the structure for you to start it. You know, at this particular moment. I don't have any with me today because I was traveling light and I've been bouncing around. But no, if you can, they're definitely on the website and you can order them, and normally they'll ship out within a day or so.
Right here, over here. Okay, hi. First of all, I want to commend you for everything that you do, and what you said about cultural therapy is so important. I have a granddaughter. I'm a grandparent raising a grandchild, has an organization in Atlanta, Georgia. Each one teach one together. And you touched on it, but I want you to elaborate on social media. It is killing our children. And that's one of my biggest dilemmas with my 14-year-old granddaughter that has 4 mental health diagnoses. I go in there, she's on YouTube looking at cutting. She's on YouTube about homosexuality. She's on YouTube doing all of this. And then all of a sudden she gets depressed. And I just want some suggestions, even though she has a therapist. And one other thing, do you do virtual counseling? And if you do you find that to be a good means? Because we're in need of young African-American therapists.
Okay, so when it comes down to social media and our kids, man, we got to understand that this is the age that they grew up on. But then also when it comes down to it, it's just teaching them, you know, as far as how, still understanding how it impacts their mood. Just like I was saying, who I talk to and how if I felt good before then, and I feel good and I don't feel good after that, that may be something that I need to tap into and cut back a little bit. So allowing them to see that pattern, you know, and helping them do that. But then also we got to do better jobs as parents and stuff as far as regulating what they actually watch. And you know, being more actively engaged in certain things. So even with my 4-year-old, I know at times it's easier to shove an iPad in their face because they shut them up. And you know, I mean, we all love our children, but at times we be like, yo, just get out my face. But we also got to be able to, you know, be more engaged in those particular things, doing other stuff with them outside of technology. You know, like I said, with coloring, I teach my people like, yo, if we go color, let's color together. Let's color as a family. You know, we got no electronics, let's eat dinner together without a TV, you know? So a lot of these things, the social media and all that stuff, it's dopamine highs. So they keep searching for it. So you gotta have a dopamine detox for them and have them doing other things. Get them outside, playing with them. They only go follow your lead, because if we being honest, we talking about our kids addicted to social media. A lot of us are addicted to it too. A lot of times we doing more scrolling than the kids. So again, it goes back to us being an example of the behaviors that we would like them to see, the healthy behaviors, and engaging them into that. Because like I said, even my son, he's 4, he know when daddy get up in the morning, daddy's gonna meditate. Eli, you joining me or you standing in the bed? I'm gonna get down there with you, daddy. He be sitting there looking all around while we down there, but I include him on these particular things. So you gotta lead by example. And to answer your other question, yes, I do virtual. Virtual can be great because it reduces the barriers to certain things for some people, because they don't have people access to certain therapists. But also, it also depends on the therapist. The therapist got to be good in being able to understand virtual too. So like, I also know how to use video games and stuff through my virtual services. And these are things that you don't learn in school. So that's why I think I'm gonna start my own school after, a postdoc, right? But like, these are things that it can be very beneficial. But you got to be, as a clinician, you got to also be creative in understanding that you got to find other ways to get them engaged.
All young people, so don't try. This is truly for our youth and our young people. They're going to be in the R&R room. If you look, I unfortunately don't know which room it is, but if you look in your thing, you'll see it. And he's just going to spend some time talking with them and letting them have a chance to talk to him. So we're truly, truly encouraging you to have your young people join him. So I want to end this just a little bit differently than typical. Told Rwenshaun the first time I met him, I raised a son, and I wish we'd had this therapist, because it would have made a huge difference. I'm going to ask you this. I want us to give Rwenshaun a different vibe here. If you would have liked to have had Rwenshaun as a therapist in the life of your child, just stand up. So with that, Rwenshaun, I'm going to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think you might have even been better today than you were on our panel, because we got to be here with you. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for your questions. We'll see you in the next session.